Hey everybody, we are starting chapter 1. We're doing our first chapter, which is actually a review chapter. This should look familiar to you. Let's jump in. We're going to talk about how to find and use the slope of a line to write and graph linear equations. So let's talk about what a slope is. If you remember correctly, a slope is the number or the difference in the vertical change divided by the difference in the horizontal change in a line. Okay, if you remember correctly, you might have called it the rise or the change in up and down over the run, the change in side to side. Parallel means two lines with the same slope, meaning they have the same direction. They're never going to hit each other because they're going in exactly the same direction, so they have the same slope. Two lines that are perpendicular first of all, it looks like this, where it makes a right angle, but two lines are perpendicular if they have opposite reciprocal slopes, meaning you have the first slope times the second slope, whatever those two lines are. If you multiply them and it equals -1, then they are perpendicular. And shorthand, we can say perpendicular looks like this. So let's talk about what the slope of the line looks like. We know the formula for it is if you've got 2 points. Remember, every point has a coordinate. It has an x and a y. So because this is the first point, we call it x1, y1. And this is the second point, x2, y2. The 1 and the 2 don't have meaning other than it's the x from the first point or the x from the second point and so on. So we're going to say we know that the slope is y2 minus y1 because that's the difference of the vertical change divided by x2 minus x1, and that's the difference of the horizontal change. So to find the slope of these 2 points, -2, 5, and 4, -3, I'm going to label this as x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm going to plug this in to my formula. So I'm going to say, okay, if it's y2 is right here, -3 minus y1, it's right here, that's 5, all over x2, which is right here, minus x1. Oh, I messed it up. Sorry. In red. This is x2 minus this is x1. Notice that this negative and this subtraction have to both be there. So the minus is part of the slope formula. Don't forget it. So sometimes I like to put a parentheses around a negative number. -3 minus 5 on the top is -8. When you subtract a negative, you add the opposite. This is a total of 6. We can reduce this. This becomes -3/2, and that is your slope. So let's talk about what different types of slopes there are. A slope that is positive will rise from left to right. So looking like this, it's going to go up to the right. A line whose slope is negative is going to fall from left to right, meaning it's going to go down to the right. A line whose slope is 0 is going to be perfectly horizontal, where it looks like a perfectly straight line parallel to the x-axis. And a line with undefined slope is perfectly vertical. And if you have this, the line will be perfectly vertical parallel to the y-axis. One of the ways I like to think about this is like when we're riding a roller coaster. You know, like in a roller coaster, how fun it is. If it's going up and down, that's fun. But if it's perfectly flat, it's 0 fun. If it's perfectly straight up and down, it's so much fun. We can't put a number on it. It's undefined. So let's remind you of the point-slope form. So remember, point-slope form is a form of the equation where a point on the line and the slope are available. Remember, a point usually has x comma y in it. We'll call this point 1 and 1 for the first point. And the slope, the letter for slope that we usually use is m. So in this equation, we're going to have x and y, values for the point and values for the slope. So we're going to write it down as y minus y1 equals m, which is the slope, times x minus x1, which is the value of the point. So keep anything in black is part of the form. It has to stay there. Anything in color, which means it's going to be replaced by a specific number. Okay, so x1, y1 goes here, the value of slope goes there. So this form of the equation is best used to find the equation of the line when, if you know one point at least on the line and the slope. So if you know those two pieces of information, you can use that form. Okay. We're not going to use the 2-point form equation because if you've got 2 points, you're going to find slope first, find m, and then once you find slope first, you can use either of the points and plug it into point slope form. Okay? So find the equation of the line having -2 that passes through the point. Okay? So if we look at this, we can plug this in and we can go point slope form, which is going to look like if this is x1 and y1 and this is m, we're going to go y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You can distribute this to simplify it, and we get -2x. -2 times -1 is +2, and we get y minus 5. If I add 5 to both sides, we end up with y equals -2x plus 7. Okay, let's move on to a linear function. We're not going to worry about approximation. Linear function looks like this. It's also known as slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. You can also see this written as f of x equals mx plus b. Okay, so the graph is a line, and it has the slope m, and the y-intercept is the value of b when the x value is 0. So this is where it crosses the y-axis, aka where x equals 0. Okay, so again, slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, and the y-intercept is 0, comma b. And let's go ahead and use this to find and determine the slope and the y-intercept of this form. So I don't know it yet, but if I can put this into this form, I can find those pieces, the slope and the intercept, that will be readily available for me. So let's move this over. We've got 2x minus y equals 4. Let's get this y by itself because that's what it looks like here. We want to get that y by itself. So let's minus the 2x. We've got -y equals -2x. And then the 4 is positive because it was positive up here. We don't want the negative there, so we're going to divide everything by -1. And we end up with y equals positive 2x minus 4. So when I look at this, I know if it's y equals mx plus b, the one in front of the x is 2, and the one after the x is -4. So I know that the slope will equal 2, and the y-intercept will equal -4. The equation of a horizontal line is always y equals whatever that value is, where it hits the y-intercept. It's going to be, this will be a number wherever it hits the y-intercept. And a horizontal line is when it's, the slope of the horizontal line is always 0, it's flat, okay? The y-coordinate of every point on the horizontal line is wherever it crosses the y-axis, which is the y-intercept. And the vertical line, the equation of a vertical line, is always going to be x equals whatever value the x-coordinate is. Okay, so this value of a is wherever it hits the x axis. And the slope of a vertical line is always undefined. The x-coordinate of every point on the graph of the vertical line, again, is a. This is also called the x-intercept. And the general form for any line we know is kind of like learning your ABCs, similar to standard form, but this is general form. AX plus BY equals C. Okay, every line has an equation that can be written in any form, even general form. And when you're using your graphing calculator, so when you see this word graphing utility in our book, it just means graphing calculator. Okay, we can use our graphing calculator to sketch the straight line. Just make sure that you use the proper viewing window, meaning that your screen is looking in the right place for your line. Okay, so when I say there's a problem with your viewing window, you need to adjust the screen so you can see your graph. We're going to go over this one in class, so leave it blank for now. We'll go over this one in class because I need to show you how to use your calculator. Let's talk about those parallel and perpendicular lines. Lines are parallel when they have the same slope, or the slopes are equal. And lines are perpendicular when the slopes are opposite, reciprocals of each other. We kind of talked about that earlier. And a line that's parallel to a slope of 2 then also has the same slope of 2. And a line that's perpendicular to a slope of 2 is going to have the opposite reciprocal. So the opposite of 2 is opposite of a positive is a negative, and the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. So these two are slopes that are opposite reciprocals or perpendicular. We're going to do this one in class so I can show you on the viewing window. Okay, again, this one's going to be in class so I can show you on your viewing window. And that's it. I'll see you back in class.